Let us start at the end. They could not see the world beyond the mountains. There was only a void of darkness and rock, but the darkness was hiding the ruins of a continent, the roofless homes, the rusting tractors, the lightless streets, the abandoned rail. But far in the distance, on the edge of the earth, a small flame was waving in the wind, the defiantly stubborn flame of Wyatt's torch, twisting, being torn and regaining its hold, not to be uprooted or extinguished. It seemed to be calling and waiting for the words John Galt was now to pronounce. "The road is cleared," said Galt. "We are going back to the world." And Ayn Rand's atlas shrugged. The productive and successful people, the overtaxed and overburdened, go on strike. They close up shop and simply disappear. They hold up in a refuge called Galt's Gulch. They refuse to be taken advantage of, to carry the weight of the non-productive and the looters, the government, and others who feel entitled to the fruits of their labors. Without the productive, all that were left were leeches and parasites. Without their hosts to feed upon, society crumbled. The engine of the world, entrepreneurship, had been turned off. The passage we just read is at the end of the book, when the productive are ready to re-enter the world and rebuild. I'm Mike Danneskjold of Outlandish Enterprises. In this presentation, we will show you how to be prepared not only to survive the coming economic difficulties, but how to thrive and prosper. You will see how you can be successful enough so you will be one of the leaders who are prepared to go back into the world, to help rebuild when the socialist and Keynesian policies that are abundant in the world today reach their inevitable conclusion: utter failure. Many times life imitates art. Or maybe the art itself was prophetic, or simply eerily accurate. These are just a few of the headlines that have appeared in the last several months. Hostess going out of business. Westinghouse Anniston has reduced its workforce by another 50 employees. Exide Technologies announced Thursday that it will be idling its lead recycling operations in Laureldale and laying off 150 workers. Energizer expects to lay off 1,500 employees due to restructuring. U.S. Cellular reducing workforce by 12%, or 980 jobs. Companies across the U.S. are folding up or severely reducing their workforce in the face of increasing governmental regulations and rising payroll costs. No doubt this is due in no small part to Obamacare and the uncertainty around the economy that results. In addition to the dozens, if not hundreds, of companies closing plants and stores and laying off workers, there are many companies like Darden Restaurants who have indicated they will limit workers' hours to 28 or less per week to avoid the Obamacare requirements. There are numerous signs that an economic cataclysm is coming to the United States. Indeed, it will be tough all over the world. There are many places to educate yourself on the Federal Reserve, the Eurozone, and the coming crack-up boom. We won't go into all the details here now, but we encourage you to do Google and/or YouTube searches on the following topics and people: Austrian economics, Murray Rothbard, Ron Paul, the Ludwig von Mises Institute, Kyle Bass, Peter Schiff. Money is Debt is a 30-minute animated documentary you can find on YouTube. The Money Masters is a full-length documentary movie on YouTube. The American Dream Film, a 30-minute animated movie, also found on YouTube. There are many others, and you have probably already acquainted yourself with many of the topics listed. In fact, that might be what has brought you here. You can see these topics and videos linked on my YouTube channel. Just search YouTube for my name, Mike Danneskjold. Be sure to spell it correctly, and go to the playlist, Truth About Banking. Economic collapse is a horrible, awful thing all by itself. But unfortunately, when nations are facing hard economic times, governments often act in oppressive and totalitarian ways. See, when times are tough for the citizens, it's also tough for the government revenue collectors. For instance, the United States has been running over $1 trillion deficits for the last several years, with no real end in sight. Governments worldwide are getting desperate for funds to prop up their faltering systems. This means more taxes and stricter regulations on average people. Austerity measures is a term they like to use, but what they're really saying is, get ready, the government is about to make your life a living hell. We are experiencing what I like to call the fumigation strategy. You see, when you fumigate your house, you don't simply set off the bug bombs. You have to prepare first. First, you make sure all the windows and doors are closed and sealed. Then, you cover things with plastic that you don't want to be exposed to the spray. Finally, you make plans to keep yourself out of the house for a day or two. With the KYC, AML policies, the war on terrorism, the war on drugs, the Patriot Act, the NDAA, the list goes on, and especially with FATCA, the governments of the world are locking down all the money. Every transaction, credit card, check, and wire, is being recorded and reported, and some countries like Norway are going to a completely cashless society. Due to FATCA reforms, banks will charge 30% for funds going to non-reporting countries. You see, they're sealing in all the money. Laws are already in place to protect and cover the banks and other friends of government. Do you know how many Obama contributors received exemptions from Obamacare for their own companies? It's over 750. Did you know that if banks don't follow the KYC AML policy written into the Patriot Act and illegal activity results, like financing for terrorism and things like that, they cannot be held liable in any way? Who do you think wrote that into the law? Finally, lawmakers, banksters, and their cohorts have left the metaphorical house. They have tons of money outside of the system. There was a big deal made of Mitt Romney's offshore holdings, but did you know that Obama also has assets offshore? Just about every member of Congress and every Fortune 500 exec has at least something outside of the country. They are ready for the bug bombs to go off. So why aren't you? Because in their eyes, you're the bug. And they are going to squeeze all the bug juice, money, out of you that they can. Once all the preparations are in place, the banksters and their wholly bought and controlled puppets in government will be free to raise taxes to whatever level they please, and you will be unable to escape. That is, unless you make your own preparations. The time to do this was yesterday, but it's not too late. The sooner you do something, the more likely you are to escape the coming tyranny. But what do you do? When faced with difficult challenges, you have three choices. You can give in, you can fight back, or you can get out. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the population will just give in. Historically, we know that only 10 to 15% of any population has a built-in libertarian independent mindset. The rest are all authoritarian-minded and will go along with whatever the powers that be demand. Outlandish cannot help these people. There are many people in the sovereign movement, the patriot movement, and many Tea Party people who wish to fight back. We sympathize with them. It's difficult to see your once proud, independent country slide into socialism, fascism, and totalitarianism. These fighters respond to headlines like the now famous "We're all socialists now" with "like hell." Many of these fighters use words, blogs, YouTube, and political organization to fight back. They are losing. Many of these fighters have guns. Some have whole armories of weapons. If their intent is to fight back directly against the government, they will likely be crushed, brutally, like we saw in Ruby Ridge, Waco, and numerous other incidents. These fighters, whether bloggers, political activists, or militia members, will be, actually already are, targeted by government. If you belong to one of these categories, you need to get started with Outlandish today to protect at least some of what you have and give yourself options if things go badly. The first American colonists belonged to the third group. They got out of England. That is also what the heroes in Atlas Shrugged did. They went on strike. Outlandish gives you the opportunity to follow in these traditions. You need to follow the lead of the wealthy and influential. You need to have at least some of your assets outside of the country, preferably in a variety of currencies and metals, and held in a private and secure manner. But this is not as easy as it may seem. One does not simply open a bank account in an offshore jurisdiction. With FATCA and FBAR reporting requirements, you would be required to report any bank or brokerage account you own anywhere in the world. And as we mentioned earlier, if the country in question does not report under FATCA, your transfers to that account will be subject to a 30% surcharge. However, many people decide to open a bank account anyway. Maybe they can fund it from outside of the U.S. or have found some other trick. They open it in a country with good bank privacy laws and then don't report those assets to the IRS. They are depending on a foreign government. This doesn't always work out so well. Panama had super bank privacy laws. It was a serious crime for any bank employee to share any information on account holders with anyone, including foreign governments. Then, in 2011, Panama signed a TIEA, that's a Tax Information Exchange Agreement, with the United States. All Panamanian banks would be required to share all information on U.S. account holders with the IRS. That's bad, but it gets even worse. The agreement was made retroactive to 3 years. If you had an account in Panama but closed it when the TIEA was announced, it wouldn't matter. The IRS would know how much you had and where you sent it. Even if you had closed the account 2 years prior to the announcement, your privacy was destroyed. If you had relied on Panamanian law to protect you, you would have some explaining to do. Even if a government has great bank privacy laws today, it could change tomorrow. And as we saw in Panama, those changes could be retroactive. You cannot depend on any government to protect you. Another method people use is to form trusts or foundations to hold their funds. This is not a good solution either. When you go to open an account in the name of your trust or foundation, the bank is now required to know who the beneficial owner of the trust or foundation is. Naturally, if you are a U.S. citizen, then you have the same issues mentioned previously. However, there are companies out there who provide nominee beneficial owners. These are people who will allow their name to be used as beneficial owner for a fee. This is a little dangerous. Once the funds are in their name, you have little or no protection. The bank thinks the nominee is the owner. If they run off with your money, you'd have to sue them and claim in court for the whole world to see that you were in fact the beneficial owner. If you are not reporting these funds to the IRS, you just admitted your crime. Finally, trusts and foundations are not great because courts in the U.S. view trusts and foundations, especially foreign ones, with suspicion. Judges simply doubt that a person would willingly hand over all their assets or a sizable portion of their assets to a foreign trust they no longer control or benefit from. It doesn't pass the sniff test. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of instances where U.S. courts have found defendants guilty of fraudulent transfers for sending funds to offshore trusts and foundations. The last method usually employed by people to hold money offshore is to form an offshore company. This is typically more complicated, expensive, and filled with potential dangers. This is why forming offshore companies is typically done by people or companies with a lot of money and teams of lawyers. There are many ways to mess up when creating a foreign company, but the most common mistake people make is maintaining de facto control or ownership. Even if you hire a nominee, director, owner, manager, if you have a contract with them where they are obligated to perform actions according to your wishes, which is understandable to protect yourself, you have legal control over that company. You see, this makes that foreign company a CFC, or a controlled foreign corporation, according to the tax code, and thereby full reporting is required. So one simply does not open a foreign bank account, or place funds in a foreign trust or foundation, or just simply form a foreign company. So what can you do? You become an owner in an outlandish business structure, OBS. For the first time, Outlandish is making available the offshore strategies employed by the super wealthy and influential to average people who are simply trying to maintain a little economic privacy in this fishbowl world. The methods employed in the outlandish business structure and trust banking strategy have been used by the likes of Google, General Electric, and wealthy individuals for decades. Listen, I think you're going to like what you hear. With an outlandish international business structure, you will be able to shelter and grow wealth out of the reach or knowledge of grasping hands inside the United States. Invest internationally without worrying about capital gains. Have money at your disposal outside of the U.S. should you decide to leave. Have your own international holding company to start your own international business. You have no burdensome filing requirements at all. Do this for a fraction of the cost, usually associated with complex international structures, and make tremendous money by helping others prepare as well. And you can do this all 100% legally. That last part is key. Outlandish does not rely on privacy laws in other countries to help U.S. people get away with something. Our methods have been reviewed by the IRS, Secret Service, FBI, NSA, and other government agencies. Not only have they not found anything wrong with the structures we employ, in over 20 years of use, none of our structures has ever been pierced or successfully attacked in court anywhere. This is because we don't have any wink and nod agreements. We use jurisdictions known for privacy. However, we do not rely on that privacy alone. The business structures we use are 100% legal. Look, anything is possible. There may come a time when the methods we use are no longer allowed. As I said, we are in the first phase of the fumigation strategy. However, the people in power, politicians, bankers, and wealthy, use these same strategies all the time. It is unlikely they will do themselves damage and outlaw what they're already using. It's also possible that there comes a time when it is no longer moral to obey the law. Rosa Parks was right not to give up her seat on that bus in Montgomery, Alabama. But don't forget, she was breaking the law at that time. We aren't there yet. Our structures allow you to hold funds offshore in a private, secure, and 100% legal manner. However, if the time comes when you are required to report those funds, that is your decision to make, not ours. We never encourage anyone to break the law. Speaking of which, our international business structures and affiliated trust accounts are the most private and secure way to hold assets anywhere in the world. They are so private and effective, real criminals, fraudsters, scam artists, grifters, drug dealers, etc., may be tempted to open accounts with us. Our message to these criminals is don't come here. Our staff has many years of experience in compliance for top financial institutions. We not only cooperate with law enforcement in the case of crime with real victims, like people running frauds or scams or terrorists, we actively monitor to ensure that these criminals receive no safe harbor here. There's much more for you to discover, but if you're like most, you are already thinking of names for your company. You can name it just about anything you'd like, so make it fun. We invite you to browse our website, www.outlandishllc.com. That's www.outlandishllc.com to learn more about Outlandish. You can access all the information you need to decide to start with the password you have been given by whomever sent you the link to this video. That's your Outlandish contact. If they didn't provide you with the password, please feel free to contact them again or contact us directly. To learn about the specifics, including pricing, of how an Outlandish business structure can help you, please review How Outlandish Works. To learn the various ways you can utilize your Outlandish business structure, watch Using Your Outlandish Business Structure. To learn about the various services offered to Outlandish clients and partners, view Outlandish Services. Finally, to learn how you can earn a sizable income utilizing your Outlandish business structure to recruit and introduce new clients, watch An Outlandish Opportunity. If you would like to attend one of our Q&A conference calls, just ask your Outlandish contact for the current schedule. When you are ready to sign up and get started, simply let your Outlandish contact know, and they will give you all the information and materials you need. Thank you for watching.